Well, I want to welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming, and as you know, the protocol is to keep eating. I'll just talk louder. This is a business luncheon after all. Welcome to the Petco second quarter business luncheon. And I want to take a moment. We have some new members that I would like to recognize. There are three. Two of them are here. Dr. Jamie Johnson with Family Smiles Company. Jamie's up here in front. Mr. Kent Stringer with A&R Construction. Kent, are you here? Thank you. Thank you. And Mr. Grant Graham with Inspecco, and he is not able to attend today, but we do appreciate our new members and want to thank you for supporting Petco. I also want to take a moment, but I don't see her in here, to introduce you to a new staff member. She is the new membership coordinator, Billy Foster. Please, Billy, stand up. And you all saw the cowboy hat. So you know there's something going on, right? We have an announcement. Today you are in for a treat, and seriously, I mean you're in for a treat. Everybody look under your chair. And there should be something that looks like this. Okay, go ahead. We have a business expansion with TR Toppers. And here to represent the company today are Andrew Lang and Mr. Greg Rode. And if you two will, no, you can't just get away with a wave. Please come up for just a second. We don't know about the sizes, but here are your new sketches. All right. Obviously, we're going to have to change sizes on these hats. Yay! For your information, this job announcement will be voted on at City Council on Tuesday, and it includes 10 new great jobs, and we want to thank you again for believing in our community and for expanding in our community. Thank you. We have a really full meeting today, and so I am going to take this opportunity to introduce Mr. Kevin Keilbach, who is our membership chairman for Petco, and he is going to take it from here. Kevin?
So was that cool or what? New jobs announcement, new members announcement, Kent, Becky, Sarah, Robert, Dr. Johnson, great to have you guys here. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining the cause. So yes, as Barb mentioned, my name is Kevin Keilbach. I am the chair of the membership committee, but even more importantly today is that I will be your DJ. And I've put together a great song list that I think we'll all like, and with no further ado, what better way to get this party started than with a little journey. Feel free to stand up, get loose. There's been a misunderstanding, and I must apologize. Barb just mentioned what I thought I was asked to DJ this event, and I guess I'm supposed to MC this event. Thank you, Barb. I'm a little embarrassed and quite frankly, a little ill-prepared at the moment. Well, okay, so as MC, I think, let's start off. We've got some dignitaries in the audience, and we do have a tight agenda, jam-packed. And with that said, rather than introducing each of our esteemed guests individually, what I would rather do is just let you know that if you are a city council member, a county commissioner, if you work at one of our representative or state senator offices, if you are a college president, if you are an emperor, a sheik, or a Jedi Knight, know that you are welcome, and we are glad that you're here. So today's program, we're going to follow a different format than what you've been used to in the past, perhaps. It's going to involve a little bit less about Petco mechanics and a little bit more about a specific development opportunity. And we're going to have those individuals that are actually involved in guiding that opportunity take the podium and lead the discussion. Think of this as a PEDTalk. Most of us in this room understand to a degree and know some things about what is the largest development opportunity, or the largest redevelopment program in the country right now. And that's, of course, happening right in our own backyard with PuebloPlex. And what our goal is today is to have each of you as Petco members leave here with a clear understanding of what does that mean to us as Petco, what does that mean to us as the Pueblo community, and what is our role in the PuebloPlex redevelopment project. So with no further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce the President and CEO of PuebloPlex to lead the discussion, Russell DeSalvo.
So, my young cousin, Jennifer Rockwell, is a Pueblo native, and she is a recent graduate of CSU Pueblo. And she is a very recent beneficiary of the jobs announcement that was just made today. And I just think that it reinforces what we do at the university, it reinforces what we do here at Petco, and it provides opportunity for our youth to stay in our community, and it provides opportunity for our community as a whole to thrive and to have a career and have a good place to work. So I want to start by saying thank you to Petco for doing what you do, and I want to thank TR Toppers for believing in Pueblo and for investing in Pueblo. So thank you very much. As Kevin said, my name is Russell DeSalvo. I'm President and CEO of PuebloPlex, and presenting with me today are going to be Dan Schneff, who is President and CEO of Matrix Design Group, and Celeste Werner, who is Vice President and Director of Planning for Matrix Design Group. I want to thank you so very much for the opportunity to share our project with you today and to be the first presenter in Petco's new format, PEDTalks. Today, we're going to tell you a little bit about our organization, PuebloPlex. We're going to show you a very brief video. We're going to reintroduce you to our project and the scope and magnitude of the facilities at PuebloPlex. We're going to explain our process and the methodology that we're going to use to enact this planning process. And we're also going to solicit some information or some input from you. So that's what these little remotes are for, and Celeste will explain their use a little bit later. And then we plan to answer any questions that you might have relating to our development. If we go over on time, our staff and team will be here. So if you have one-on-one questions, we're happy to stay if you want to engage with us. Before we get started, I want to say a very special thanks to the PuebloPlex Board of Directors. They spend countless hours, time, energy, and effort on behalf of the community, and I just want to thank them for all that they do, and they're kind of scattered here in these top two tables, so thank you, Board. In addition, I would like to thank Rick Solander, who is part of the Department of Defense's Office of Economic Adjustment. He is our project manager, and he flew in to be at this presentation today, so thank you for being here, Rick. We appreciate it. And finally, I want to thank our staff and their tireless efforts to help get this project where we are today, and the Matrix team that is engaging with us in this process. So I want to thank them as well. And again, they're kind of scattered in those two tables. So thank you all. So Pueblo Chemical Depot was put on the BRAC list in 1988. BRAC is the process that Congress and the Department of Defense uses to realign, to make the military more efficient, or to close unneeded or unnecessary military installations. Since 1988, 350 military installations here in the United States and abroad have been closed using BRAC protocols. Our process here at Pueblo has been delayed due to complicating factors such as we store chemical weapons at the facility, and the new pilot process that we are using in Pueblo for the very first time to safely destroy the chemical weapons that are stored here in Pueblo. So that's resulted in the delay from the 1988 listing until today. In essence, the BRAC process is a two-step process. It involves the first step, which is planning for closure of a military installation, and that's when the government spends a lot of time talking to itself and other governmental entities at the local level, the state level, and at the national level. In the community, we get an opportunity to put together a redevelopment plan or a vision as to what we want this property to look like or this development to look like in the future. The Office of Economic Adjustment has provided generous funding for our community to go through and to put forward a first-class planning effort on behalf of the community. Once our plan is complete, we will then begin to implement the plan, which will likely be sometime in late 2017 or 2018. So PuebloPlex is a branding concept. It's a concept that we hired a professional firm to help us come up with, and it helps us to delineate or differentiate ourselves from the active Army. So as you might imagine, it would be very difficult for me to inspire a new company or an industry to relocate their business at the Pueblo Chemical Depot. So we're trying to get the rebranding process started now, so when we begin implementing a few years from now, we have a head start and people are getting used to calling it PuebloPlex as opposed to the Pueblo Chemical Depot. Our organization was formed in 1994 by the Colorado State Legislature. We are a political subdivision of the state of Colorado, and we are tasked with three things: to create jobs, to expand our tax base, and to ensure the good environmental stewardship of the land and assets at the depot. For the past few years, we've been spending our time re-engaging or re-energizing the planning process. We've been monetizing the process. It's a very expensive process that we're about to undertake. And we've been building a world-class team. And I am not kidding you. We have the best of the best in the industry nationally and internationally working on this project here in Pueblo. And I'm very proud of the work that our board of directors and staff have done in getting this team in place. We're currently in the fourth stage of that redevelopment planning process. We're about 1/3 of the way through, and we hope to have our redevelopment plan completed by the end of the year. Next slide. We view this project not as a base closure. We're trying to keep a very positive outlook. We view this as a business startup or a new opportunity for our community. Really, truly, we have a tremendous amount of assets available to us in Pueblo that are housed at the Pueblo Chemical Depot. We've put together an organization that is different than traditional siloed type organizations that you'll see in many businesses and many governmental entities. We've put together a program or an organizational design, if you will, that facilitates communication, it inspires collaboration, and it ensures community consensus. You'll see that it's circular in the way that it works, and we pull information from our various constituent groups and share it with other groups, because we know when you're doing a project of this size that lasts for multiple decades, communication is the key, and constant, consistent information and reinforcement of the plan is necessary. So my team and my board of directors are confident that our non-traditional new approach to dealing with a project like this will be successful, and it's exactly what Pueblo needs to make this project work. Thank you, and let's roll the video now.
The Ute and Comanche Indians were the earliest residents along the Arkansas.
As Russell said, I'm Dan Schneff. I'm the program director for the redevelopment effort that's going to occur over the next year to result in a redevelopment plan. We felt like to put you on the map. Many of you probably already have been at the site and know the property, but we use Google Earth to show you both the scale of the project and its location in relationship to Pueblo. As you can see, Avondale and Boone are listed on the map, as is Pueblo, and you can see the square, rectangular area that represents 22,848 acres of property. When you talk about a physical asset, this is immense. To give you a little bit of sense of that, it's about the size of the land area of the city of Miami in Florida. This property is going to be an immense asset for the whole community as it goes forward. That 22,848 acres is connected by 160 miles of paved roadway. It contains 1,100 structures, 6.5 million square feet of building area, and yes, 922 former storage igloos for weaponry. This is the challenge and the opportunity that represents the Pueblo project going forward. We were given approximately 3 times the amount of time to give you a demonstration of what we're going to accomplish over the next year. Celeste is the lead planner for the project, and the project manager will be doing a portion of it, and I will be doing the other portion. At the end of the time frame, there's also going to be an opportunity for you to ask questions, as Russell had said. We couldn't be more proud and happy to have been selected amongst international competition to work on this project. Russell indicated you needed a world-class team to do the work. We regularly do these projects around the country, and our world-class team includes people we've worked with on a national basis and even an international basis, like JDA and Associates, Jeff Donahoe's firm in economics, together with RCLCO, who's already been working with us on other projects in the Pueblo area. We've also worked with national providers of rail to take a look at the rail asset as it becomes available, the Bro Company and Alex Uros. We've even endeavored to bring onto our team the former Colorado Department of Transportation lead, Mr. Don Hunt, to look at access and egress issues as it relates to the site in addition to the planning. But this team can't do very much without a local flavor, without understanding Pueblo and the project. So we've also brought onto our team Swerdweger Construction, All Phase Environmental, and Creativo, which you all know very well as a local public involvement firm. When you put together the national experience and the local flavor that comes together with these experts and subject matter experts across the board in what we're going to have to do, you have an unmatched team for success. You might ask about Matrix. While we're a national practitioner in Base Realignment and Closure and have been doing this since 1984, we have offices all around the country. We're headquartered in Colorado. And when I interviewed for this project, I told Russell the most exciting thing to me was that we were going to have an opportunity to work on a project where I could sleep in my own bed at night and actually wake up with my wife and not have to worry about being in some other city or even country. These projects that are on the board represent our most recent BRAC activities, but we've worked on over 100 major asset redevelopment projects around the country and internationally. I'm going to go over a few of those that are similar in nature and scale to this project. We just completed the Umatilla Army Chemical Depot project in Oregon. This project is sitting in nestled into a community that's far smaller than the 160,000 in the Pueblo area here. A much bigger challenge, but the size of the project was similar. These kinds of projects are going to be our competition going forward, and the advantage we have is we've seen their assets, we understand what their upside and downside are, and we can help work through that as this project looks at implementation. The Kansas Army Ammunition Plant is the most similar, in my opinion, to this project, 13,727 acres. And the best aspect of this program in Parsons, Kansas, was that they had a rail yard that we helped to study from an economic perspective, and it's generating economic activity through railcar storage and attracting industrial users. There'll be a similar analysis done for the project here. No project is successful unless the plan ultimately results in the job creation that Russell spoke to, the offshoot economics, and the tax base creation. This project in Chemical Depot in Newport, up in Indiana, we finished it relatively shortly ago, about 3 years ago. And already, Clean Coal Company has built the plant you see in this picture, and it's re-energizing that area with an energy business. Locally, in 1996, we were hired to do the redevelopment planning at the Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center. It's a completely different kind of use. It's a medical use. But the interesting thing is on 500 acres, we were challenged with developing 15 million square feet together with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, as well as the University of Colorado. Today, this is about 75 or 67% complete. There's over 10 million square feet developed. Maybe some of you have been up into that area, but it's a very successful Army BRAC project. Lowry Air Force Base is in Aurora and Denver, Colorado, 1,800 acres of redevelopment mixed use. It's an Air Force project that's known as the most successful BRAC. The important thing I'd like to mention here is that when you do implementation while you're doing planning, a project like this, which generated $750 million annually for the City and County of Denver and Aurora, was converted, and today it generates over $2 billion of annual economic input to both of those communities. This is the kind of success that we want to see down here. Locally, we've got a tremendous amount of experience. I said earlier that Matrix was founded in Colorado. These are some of the projects and organizations that we've worked for recently. I'm most proud of the fact that Matrix focuses on major asset redevelopment, and in particular, we're working on the Pueblo Springs Ranch Development Review, which, as you know, is probably 25,000 acres. You've got a lot of land asset coming on the market at the same time, just north of Pueblo. An exciting time, for sure. We've also been very proud since the 1980s of working on the HARP project. And most recently, we commissioned the Veterans Memorial Bridge, which we took from concept through design and construction in a record time of less than 2 years. Very exciting work that we've been working on here. This is an eye test, so we'll be asking questions about this later, and you guys will have to answer. Russell's challenged us with doing our project in about 12 months. What you need to focus on here is the 3 middle bands. The first one reflects analysis and really getting a handle on what's out there. That's an asset or a liability. The second band looks at the redevelopment planning effort itself, again, with touching base with the economics. The third one looks forward to implementation. How do you implement this project in the near term, the midterm, and the long term? And the last and the first represent active management of the project and the process from its beginning to its end. The last piece represents active public involvement continuously through the process. Your input is very, very important. How do we assess things? Well, we look at the capacity, we look at the location, we look at the cost, we look at the serviceability of these kinds of components. When we look at your project here, and we take an assessment, which we've taken on recently, this is voluminous amounts of material. Boiling it down to what are the assets in terms of costs, the operating costs, how can this be converted and used in the future, are all important questions that we'll be addressing in the planning process. The environmental constraints is significant. With any BRAC project, you're dealing with a property that's been operated for 30 to 50 years by the Department of Defense, and they actually cause a bit of environmental constraint over time. Our job is to match up with that environmental constraint and to provide an opportunity for development in a similar use context. The most important aspect, as I've been reflecting, is how do we get the data? And again, our team is prepared to come in and look at local real estate market conditions. We're going to look at a regional context for employment, and we're going to not steal from Peter to pay Paul. I know Petco is all about job creation, and you don't want to get in the discussion about is it good for Pueblo City, or is it good for the county, or is it good for some private developer? You want to get into the discussion about how it's good for all. And so this project will look at how that regional context has to be respected and what development areas in Pueblo need to be respected while this becomes a reality over probably 30 to 50 years. If we do our job right and we stay focused on economics, then at the end of the day, we will jump the development curve on a project that could take 50 years and bring it down into the 30-year range. When we do this project, we're going to be looking at early wins in the 3 to 5 year range, midterm wins for development and job creation, probably more in the 10 to 12 year range, and then the long term, which envelop the development horizon.
As Russell stated, this project is funded by a grant from the Office of Economic Adjustment, OEA. OEA does a lot more than just provide funding for grants. Actually, they are a true partner with the community and a partner with the Pueblo community and region here. They go forward and they assign a dedicated and very experienced officer or project manager to this project. He was introduced earlier, Rick Solander. But in addition to that, the Office of Economic Adjustment goes forward and they develop an abundance of technical resources and guidance that all of us can use as we move forward and develop a successful plan. One of them they just recently completed was to put together a complete socioeconomic database for selected defense communities across the United States. The great news is that Pueblo was actually one of those communities selected. And the other great news is it was just recently done, which means the information is current and relevant. We're going to be utilizing all of that information as we go forward in what Dan just talked about in our assessment of existing conditions. But in addition to that, there's another big great bonus. All of that information is available to all of you, to the community. And we encourage you to please go to PuebloPlex.net to go and investigate and research and see all of the great socioeconomic data that is in the dashboard. It includes such things as what are the home sales trends that have been in the past, what are the demographics, what are the building permits that have been pulled, and what is the unemployment rate. So I really do encourage you to go look at all of that. So what's next? You heard Dan talk about the 3 different phases of the overall process. He just talked about we're going to be looking at infrastructure, environmental, facilities, and the great assets and liabilities associated with that. But we go then to the next step. We look at the vision, and we go through what's called a SWOT exercise. Many of you probably are familiar with that. We look at the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats, both internal to the community and external to the community, the ones that we have no control over. And as we look and assess all of that information, we take that and we develop 3 different land use alternatives. And those land use alternatives are going to be based on a very realistic plan, one that is always focused on implementation and one that is focused on a new startup, like Russell stated earlier in his presentation. So we're not attacking this as a redevelopment project. Those 3 alternatives then will result in a preferred plan. And as we go forward to identify what is the best preferred plan, we create a set of criteria working with all of you and with the PuebloPlex Board of Directors and our team, and we evaluate those land use alternatives, of which one of the criteria we're going to be looking at is going to be a fiscal analysis as well as a market analysis, or an economic analysis. So the fiscal side of the house, we're going to be looking at what type of revenue is going to be generated from this development and how it affects the community, and what is the cost to operate and maintain that development out of PuebloPlex. In addition to that, we're going to be looking at the economic side. How many jobs are going to be created? What are the type of wages? What level of skill sets are going to be required? So as we move forward, we're going to also be looking at what are the different financial options or public financing options available to going forward for the implementation.
Celeste has been talking about all of the different things that come together to create a preferred plan. I've been speaking a lot about making sure we keep our eye on the ball, which is job creation, even raising the type of salaries that get generated here, and also the tax base. We understand that public finance sometimes can be a dirty word, but we need to look at how we balance the costs of operating a site, how you get to attract businesses here, and how you can combine those things to create a win-win for the development community. Public financing, like tax increment financing, we've used it all over the state of Colorado. That's specific to the state of Colorado. It's a tremendous tool in helping generate a lot of revenue for public infrastructure, for example. But there are other ways to deal with public infrastructure, including impact fees to developers when they buy a parcel of land. They pay into a sinking fund that allows for the development of public infrastructure that's used by many. We'll also look at other types of special districts, and we'll look at bonding, revenue bonds, as a possibility for finance. Up until now, we've been talking a lot about this side of the equation. This particular chart, and again, it's an eye chart, but we will provide our presentation in total to anybody who wants it. They can pick it up at the end today, or we can get it through the email system. But we've been talking about all the products that result in this preferred plan. Typically, the Department of Defense, and we created this chart, goes in a 2-step process that goes and ends here and then begins again in implementation. Russell DeSalvo was very sharp. He negotiated with the Department of Defense to get some of these activities that usually happen after a plan embedded up front so that we can actually take a look at economics as we're going forward and make the plan fruitful. What I'm going to go through now is just a few of the important components of implementation. Implementation strategies, as many of you know, are going to be successful when people invest. how do you get property to the ground or to the market? We'll look at all of the parcelization techniques, environmental transfers, economic development conveyances. There's a lot of alphabet soup up here. But these are methodologies that the Department of Defense uses on a regular basis to get land into the hand of the public entity and ultimately to the private sector. We will have to develop a plan to make this happen in a phased manner so that you don't have too much on the market too soon, but you have enough to get business opportunities to be fruitful. We're also going to have to balance project economics because they're going to drive this program. How do you carry the project operationally, and how do you pay for infrastructure as the project builds out? The implementation plan will create market realities, and the feasibility will be here when we get that third-party investment. Two specific things we'll do in this program to help that happen is a target industry analysis, and we have the best experts in the country. They have national and international databases on what types of industries are appropriate to the site. We'll do a reverse site selection process that looks at the attributes of the site and looks at what all of these people around the country and even out of the country need, and we'll try to marry those two things up. Of course, it also involves a marketing component. So the second big thing we'll be addressing is the business attraction strategy. If you sat here today and you didn't expose this project to anybody anywhere in the country, I wonder how many people would know about the tremendous asset and that there was an investment opportunity. So the business attraction strategy looks at how you do that. Where do you market it? Is it in other states? And how do we bring that all to bear so that if they're not looking, they're looking now and they know the asset? The last thing that we'll do is we'll create a pro forma, which is a development pro forma that not only works to negotiate for a sales, possibly with the Department of Defense, but also will be an operating pro forma that allows the PuebloPlex to negotiate with future users and operate the property over the 30-year horizon.
One of the most important components is public involvement. And public involvement is weaved throughout the entire process from the beginning all the way through the end. And why? Because it's important that we create a community-based plan. It's not our plan, it's your plan. And in doing so, we want to make sure we have buy-in and consensus throughout the process. There are a number of different methods and avenues and press releases, project websites that we're going to be using to do two things. One, to inform all of you of what's going on in the project, what step we are in the process, and where are the different opportunities that you could provide input. The other one is the providing input part, where we're getting the insight and your information and your input into the project. One item that I would like to present today is to make sure that all of you try to have the time to go to the project website, which is www.PuebloPlex Redevelopment Plan.com. In there you have the opportunity to sign up for email blasts as well as provide comments throughout the process. You'll see that in PuebloPlex there is a special word, and it's called people. And people is really important throughout. So that means all of you are part of that people, the stakeholders, your neighbors, your friends, and others within the community. And so you'll see that we're going to do our very best to get your input throughout the process. We're excited to state that right now is the very first time that we're going to unveil input from all of you. If you go to your tables, everybody should have one of these polling devices, remote polling devices. If you could pick them up, please, I'll explain what we're going to be going through. Many of you may have seen this process in the past. The one thing I want to state before I forget is when we're done with the exercise, please just leave the remotes on the table and we'll pick them up later. Minor detail, but an important one. They're really useless without all of them together. So with that stated, you'll see that there are buttons on there from A, B, C through, I believe the number, I can't even read it, J. So now you know my age. Anyhow, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be asking you questions, and they're going to be multiple choice questions. You'll have the opportunity to pick the answer that you like per the question. Now, if you select it, all you have to do is push it. It'll go right to our machine and calculate it. If you push the button and you decided that, well, maybe I want to select a different answer, go ahead and push the button. The last button you push is the one that's going to be calculated into the results. But if we show the results, if you push the button afterwards, it will be too late. So there is one question that actually has the opportunity for you to pick two answers. And when we get to that, I'll let you know when we get there. You just push two different buttons, and it works the exact same way. So with that, we have our very first question. And our question is, please identify your primary affiliation. We have 92 responses so far. 3. You'll see that A, we have financial banking and insurance representatives here, about 23 or 25%, and about investors, and 25% of other. And you'll see the other results. And these will be made available to everybody. How familiar are you with PuebloPlex, the site, and the facilities out there? So 42% said somewhat familiar. Next question. What are the key advantages for developing at PuebloPlex? This is the question where you have the opportunity to select 2 answers. So the top 2 are existing facilities and access to rail. In terms of potential market sector opportunities, which of the following has the most potential? Looks like warehousing and distribution, and manufacturing and distribution. What are the preferred options for financing redevelopment? There we go, that was easy. All or some combination of the above. We'll provide you our expertise and
we need to remove that one as an option.
There you go. Okay, do you feel the Pueblo Chemical Agent Destruction Pilot Plant, the PCAP, is an asset or a liability in terms of site redevelopment? Short-term liability, but a long-term asset.
Excellent.
And this is our last question for the day. We talked about public involvement. So we'd like to hear from you as far as what is the best method to notify you about future public engagement opportunities? email, and newspaper. Excellent. We'll do our very, very best. And with that, on behalf of Matrix Design Group, Dan and myself, we'd like to say we're very honored to do this job. We're very, very excited, and it truly is all about the people.
Thank you. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today and to share with you the process we're about to embark upon. I and my board of directors are committed to make this project a success. We definitely have the resources available to us, the support from both the Army and the Department of Defense to really help the community reutilize this asset. But we really truly need your help. We would ask that you participate in our public planning processes, that you engage with us, that you talk with us. We're going to do our best to drive that communication flow amongst our stakeholder groups, but we really truly need you to talk to us and let us know what you think. Is it a good idea, a bad idea? Is it something that Pueblo can embrace as a community? And we would just ask for your help and assistance in the coming months as we outreach to the community and ask for your input in this process. So at this point, we would like to open it up to any questions that you might have relating to the project.
And I've got a microphone here, so I will kick this off with a couple observations and a question first, and then if you have questions, I'll ask that you raise your hand and I will find you. Very interesting to see some of those stats, right? I especially found interesting the question about how familiar are you with the PuebloPlex project. Very familiar, somewhat, not at all familiar, and I think the fact that 15% of this room, after listening to an in-depth conversation with slides and things, mentioned not at all familiar. So we know who is sleeping. I don't know if you want to volunteer. If you are one of those 1 in 8 that is still not at all familiar with it. The other thing that I thought was interesting is that nobody watches the public access channel. That was a 0%. So a question that I have, you've talked about the collaborative involvement that the community will have on this project moving forward, and you've obviously been very collaborative over the last few years as well. And you talked about a lot of timing pieces within the project. What's the timing where PuebloPlex will actually assume ownership of property out there?
Okay, good question. We have to get through this planning process that will likely take until first quarter of 2016. And then there are a series of real estate actions that the government has to take and environmental actions and reports that have to come after that. So likely 2017, late 2017, 2018 is the likely time that we will assume ownership of property.
Thank you.
So while you're waiting for that to happen, does that mean I can't lease an igloo or 20,000 square feet of manufacturing building out there?
Well, Lori's on our board of directors, so that's a loaded question, and I guess this is the commercial for PuebloPlex. But currently, we operate, and the way that we fund our operations is through a master lease with the United States Army. So we have close to 745 buildings available for lease at this time, ranging from igloos to 90,000+ square foot warehouses. And so the answer is yes, we can do business now. But for fee simple transfers, it's going to be a couple of years until we have the ability to sell property.
Okay, so this is the second quarter Petco luncheon. Where do we fit in? Where does Petco fit in?
Good question. Petco obviously is a huge part of this. Even though we are located in the county and Petco focuses on the city of Pueblo, we are currently working together and have worked together for quite some time. I was previously on Petco's board of directors, and I can't say enough about Petco and their support. Even though we may not be eligible for half-cent sales tax funds, there's lots of other incentive packages that we can put together for folks to relocate to PuebloPlex or the industrial park. The one thing that our board of directors is adamant about is that we don't get into competition. We have to work together as a community. This project is so big, and what Petco does is so big for the city. We have to work together as a community if we really truly want to make economic development work for all. All of this data all of these studies are not just for the PuebloPlex. They're going to be shared with Petco. They can be used for the entire community. And it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, literally, to put these studies together. And it's money and studies that we can share with Petco and we can use to benefit all of us. So.
Russell, given the current use of the facility, what kind of environmental concerns exist? What does the cleanup look like?
I'm going to defer to Dan on that one.
I'd like to say that the project is clean and we'll go right to negotiations on transfer, but we address this on probably every major asset redevelopment project, whether it's a BRAC project or not. In this particular case, we pay close attention to something called the Army's Environmental Baseline Study, which is really established under its existing use, so they're going to study the contaminants they've created under the existing use of the property. And then we have something we call the RCRA-CERCLA gap. CERCLA is what's applied to the Department of Defense for cleanup. When the property becomes private, it's going to be a state-generated opportunity through CDPHE, known as RCRA. And what we do is we look at data gaps between that environmental study and what has to be done to close the gap, both financially and technically. We'll work closely with the Army, and there may be an opportunity to do something called an Environmental Services Cooperative Agreement. If that occurs, then we'll create near-term jobs in the area with people living in Pueblo, working at the site, doing the very cleanup that the Army wouldn't do under an ESCA, the Environmental Services Cooperative Agreement. That's a home run, creating early job opportunities, creating tax base here, raising the level of the income because those salaries are higher generally for environmental cleanup. So we look very close at what's the new use going to be, how does that comport with the old use, how do we close the gap between the two, how does the Army, our partners, help us do that. Oh, by the way, Russell wanted me to mention, it's a 9-figure cleanup number in the Army's, on the Army's book. So it's a very, very large cleanup number, dollar-wise.
Jack.
Just one clarification. So Petco does help the county and city. Our mission is to serve both county and city, and we've done projects like GCC and assisted with Transportation Test Center and so forth. With that said, so what can we expect in the next couple months? What are some of the really short-term things that the community will see happening?
Go ahead and answer that. As we're moving forward, our first phase, we've been under contract for about a month now. And we've been working closely with both PuebloPlex and the PCD. They've been a great staff. Their staff has been great in helping us collect all the data, or as much data as possible. And we're going to start our on-site investigation and evaluation of the condition of the facilities, the infrastructure, and really look into more of the environmental constraints and challenges that we have in front of us as we move forward. Concurrent to that, so that's going to go on for about a couple months here as far as the on-site investigation and data collection. Concurrent, as I said, public involvement. We're probably going to be back out here in June to do a kickoff meeting with the public and to present to them basically what you heard today, what this project's all about, and how they have other opportunities of providing input. And we'll do some exercises during that phase as well. And then we'll be moving into the land use alternatives, probably month 3 and 4, development of it.
Thank you, Celeste. Other questions? Ralph.
Yes, well, are you considering either the same arrangement that Petco has or what the city has with the industrial park and or annexing PuebloPlex going forward?
Thanks for that question, Ralph. Good question. That's something that we will explore through the planning phases as to how we can finance this property. It's obviously needs work. We're going to need some type of incentive to bring folks out there. What we don't want to do is just dump 6.5 million square feet of space on the Pueblo real estate market and drop real estate prices universally. So we have to have a very measured approach. We have to very much consider other alternative strategies to provide incentives for companies to move out there. So that would be something that we will certainly study, but it's much too early to speculate at this point.
Ralph always asks tough questions. He really does.
I have a quick question. How can the community get involved in this project?
I'll go ahead and answer that. There are, as I stated a little earlier, a couple different opportunities throughout the process. We're going to be holding 3 different public workshops that we would encourage all of you and others and stakeholders to participate in and be part of. In addition to that, we've been holding one-on-one interviews with many of the different stakeholders. We started that this week, and that's going to go on for the next several weeks. The website, the project website, it's not interactive in the sense that we go back and forth and we talk, but there's a menu button there that they have the opportunity to provide comments and questions throughout, and we'll get back to that person individually or as a whole. If there's frequently answered or asked questions, we'll upload that to the website. In addition to that, we encourage them to, and Russell's going to love this, to contact Russell and his staff, Michael Clarkson, throughout. We'll be available to answer questions or to have additional one-on-one interviews and discussions with them. And then we have 2 specific focus group meetings or workshops basically that we're going to be holding, and they're going to be focused on land use, transportation, infrastructure, environmental, the issues part of it. And another one's going to be focused on the development of the plan and really doing a check with the development community, the real estate and the development industry representatives to make sure that this is going to be a realistic plan.
Thank you. Other questions? So we've, I think we're at about 12 minutes till 1, and there's one final question if you guys want to pick up your clickers. Because we do have a little extra time that I didn't anticipate, click 1 if you want to adjourn early, or 2 if you want to hear the rest of my playlist.
The results are?
It's not working. All right. Thank you, Russell.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, Celeste.
He's so funny.
Our hope is that this format provides value to you. And thank you for all attending today. I think it's clear that what's happening through the PuebloPlex project has the potential to be a game changer here in Pueblo. Russell made a comment early on that, for someone like me, I've got 4 kids. I know most of us in this room either have kids or grandkids, and every one of us is invested and committed to this great city and this great region, right? And so whether we're talking PuebloPlex or Petco or just various development and revitalization projects here in this city, it's impactful for me as I hope in 5, 10, 15 years that my kids have a great option to stay in Pueblo and have a great quality of life, great productivity, great jobs, and have the same type of environment that many of us in this room grew up in. So again, thank you. For me, it hits home, and thank you for everyone that came today. Appreciate your engagement, and enjoy your afternoon.
He's good. He's so funny. He's hilarious. Hub Insurance. He works with Ralph Williams.